Welcome, heroes, villagers, and monsters alike. My name is Encryx, and welcome to Age of Mythology, Retold. The complete beginner's guide. The guide for complete beginners. The guide made specifically for beginners beginning the game for the first time. First part of this Intro to Age of Mythology series. In the next few minutes, we shall cover the basics, and I mean the complete basics, with which you can just jump into a game and succeed. So, for every one of you newcomers to the world of real-time strategy games, let this be your one-stop shop to grasp the basics of the game. Real-time strategy games, often abbreviated to RTS, are notorious for having a lot, and I mean a lot, of information that's thrown at you all at once. So, we shall approach this in bite-sized bits, where I'll be with you each step of the way. So, by the end of this tutorial, you will be able to do 3 things. 1. Know how to beat the campaigns and win a game of Age of Mythology. 2. Navigate your way around the game screen. And 3. Move and command your units. For those of you whom have already some experience with this genre, I have included timestamps below, so you can skip to the topics you're curious about that are unique to Age of Mythology. Objective. Simply put, how to win. You will generally win a game of Age of Mythology by destroying all of your opponent's units and production buildings. Only buildings that can produce units needed to be destroyed, and the enemy's armies and villagers need to be defeated. Or forcing their surrender works too. To conquer our enemies, first, we need to collect resources, establish an economy, build a base, research technologies, and then train the armies, which will do the conquering for us. So let's get started. To aid us in our quest to subdue our enemies, we have to first familiarize ourselves with the user interface, otherwise known as the UI. We shall start in the middle and work ourselves clockwise around the screen. First off, at the top of your screen is the resource bar. It shows you how much stuff you have, which you will need to expend to train units in your army. And given this is a magical game of myths and monsters, your workers and buildings will be able to draw from this pool of resources whenever and wherever they are. This number in the middle, this tells us what age we are in. We can ignore that for now. To the right of your resource bar, you will see these banners. We shall go over these in a later video. To the top right of the screen, we have our menu bar. And starting from the left-hand side is the map information button. Then we have the technology tree. We shall go over the technologies of all civilizations in a future video. Then the diplomacy button, and finally the menu button. If you're playing the campaign, there's also a pause button that will appear on the leftmost area of this bar. During the campaign, by clicking on the map information button, you will also be able to display your objectives. These objectives are also automatically displayed on the right-hand side of the screen, just below your menu bar. The objectives marked on the right-hand side of your screen are several side quests that you may be able to fulfill to help you clear each scenario, as well as possible alternative win conditions. Cycling back now to our resource bar, we can see that the resources of Age of Mythology are food, wood, gold, and favor. Food is mainly used for civilian units, your workers, villagers, traders, and the like, as well as being the primary resource used to train your infantry, like this here hoplite. We gain food from hunting or gathering from wild animals and berry bushes, but we can also farm for our food. Wood is primarily used for building, and is the primary resource for training your ranged soldiers by equipping them with bows and arrows. We gain this resource from our large logging industry. Gold. I mean, it's gold. It's used for almost anything. Building buildings, training units, you name it. But this is the primary resource used when training cavalry. Horses certainly weren't cheap in the ancient world. If your gold runs out, well, let's just say I don't think you'll be having any means to employ our army now, will we? We can gain gold through mining or establishing a trade route. Next, we have favor, a resource completely unique to Age of Mythology. This resource, acquired through appeasing the gods, is primarily used to summon mythological units directly from the gods at our temples, but is also needed in large quantities to call upon the power of the gods directly through their god powers. These will appear in the bar just below your resources, and are all able to be used once for free, but needing increasingly greater favor costs for subsequent casts. Finally, we have this house. I didn't mention this earlier because it's not exactly a resource that gets expended, but this indicates our population count. On the left-hand side, we have our current population over our current population cap. If we reach this cap, we won't be able to train any new units. We can increase our population cap through building houses or town centers, where our people can stay in their off time. Although I don't think I've ever seen anyone ever enter one of these houses, now that you mention it. Must just be my imagination. Now, if all these resources seem overwhelming to you, that's alright, because Age of Mythology Retold has the feature to help you out. This button, right below our resource bar, is called the Villager Priority button. If we click on it, we can disperse our villagers automatically to collect the resources in the distribution we so desire. Now, knowing our resources, we next need to know how to get more, since eventually we're going to run out of our meager starting resources. This brings us nicely to move and command your units. We need to start with the humble villager, since the backbone of any army is the strong economy which supports it. To command this unit, we first need to know the two modes of commanding it: selection and interaction. The first is simple. Using your left mouse button, mouse over the unit you want to select, and left-click once, to which they will respond with an audio cue.
Prostagma?
Well, wait a minute. She responded, but what's this? It's appeared at the bottom left of the screen. These boxes are what's called the heads-up display, or HUD, which has a unit command box, whereby we can issue specific build and move commands, and also the unit information box, which contains helpful information, such as the unit's name, its faction, tons of numbers that won't make sense yet, but most importantly, the unit's health. Should a unit's health drop to 0, it dies, and we will see that reflected in the freeing up of population. The left mouse button can also be used to select objects, wild animals, trees, and enemy soldiers. To deselect something, just left-click on the ground where there are no units, and the HUD will also disappear. Furthermore, selection can be done with multiple units at the same time, for which we press the left mouse button, hold, and drag to make a selection box. Then we release to grab all the units that we want to command. Finally, we have the right mouse button, which interacts with an object. This is a bit more complicated, because what command is issued depends on who is selected and what is being interacted with. Now, if you have experience with other games, this should be familiar to you. Going back to our helpful villager lady, after we select her with left click, we can right click to have her move to a location. If we mouse over a different object, we can see the cursor change its shape, which will indicate what type of action is going to be taken. Hover over wood, and you can chop it down. Hover over this pig, and you can harvest it for its meat. Hover over gold, and you can mine it. You can also task your villager to pray at a temple to gain favor. Finally, should we move our mouse cursor over an enemy unit, we can see it change its shape into a sword. Similarly, mousing over an enemy building turns it into a flaming torch, meaning we can attack and attempt to destroy it. Oh boy, that's gonna leave a mark. To stop this from happening, we need to override our command with another command by either right-clicking on the ground or pressing the stop button in our HUD. This way, we don't send Miss Villager here to her untimely demise. And that covers it for our 3 objectives for part 1 of our series. Now, you know about the objectives of the game of Age of Mythology, how to interpret the information on your UI, and how to move your units. We've laid the groundwork for all things to come. So join me next time in part 2 of the Complete Beginner's Guide, where we will cover training your units, building your buildings, and researching technologies. This is NCryX signing off. I'll catch you legends in the next video.